British Prime Minister Boris Johnson wanted to suspend Parliament to force this whole Brexit move, just make it happen. One problem, he had to get Queen Elizabeth to go along. Guess what? She went along. She did. She approved his suspending Parliament for upwards of a month to, well, close the deal, or at least that's the impression. Brexit Party leader Nigel Farage joins me right now on the phone. Nigel, always good having you. What does this mean now? What's put in place?
It's not, Neil, as exceptional as people may think. We have a constitutional monarchy, which means that, Parliament operates through the, not the power, but the auspices of the Queen. So actually, what Boris Johnson has done is he's closed the current session of Parliament, announced the reopening of Parliament, the Queen has approved, and on the 14th of October, Boris Johnson will lay out his new legislative programme for the next year. It's a little bit like the State of the Union speech that happens in America. It's all being portrayed as some sort of terrible trick that Boris is playing on the British people. It's actually a very normal thing.
All right, so is there anything to stop the Brexit, decision to move, go ahead and bolt from the rest of Europe, deal or no deal?
Well, here's the big dilemma. How do we leave the European Union on the 31st of October? Do we leave with a clean break Brexit, or do we leave with the withdrawal agreement that Mrs May put to Parliament 3 times and was 3 times rejected? And here's my concern. Much as I think Boris has brought great optimism and energy to the job, things that President Trump has identified, it looks like he wants to go for an amended form of that withdrawal agreement, and that would still leave us very tied to EU rules and would mean we could not do a trade deal with the USA for several years to come. So what I'm doing as leader of the Brexit Party is putting as much pressure as I can on Boris to say, come on, we've spent over 3 years waiting to do this. Let's just get out with a clean break Brexit and get on with our lives.
All right, the fear was that if you did that, there'd be all hell to pay, and that, your British pound has been tumbling on the concerns this is going to hurt you much more than it's going to hurt the Europeans than the rest of the world. What do you say to that?
Well, you know what? I spent 20 years working in financial markets before getting involved in politics, and very often you get short-term hysteria in markets, and it's always the old thing, isn't it? Sell the rumour, buy the fact. And I think, frankly, once the UK has left the European Union, if we do it in a clean way, I think foreign and direct investment will flood into the United Kingdom because we'll be free of Greece and Italy and all these economies that are doing so badly. And the arguments against leaving are those from the status quo, those from the big firms who are doing very well, thank you. And life's always like that. You always get the big and the rich want no change. Actually, the time has come, not just economically to change, but democratically. Why should my country be run by unelected bureaucrats in Brussels? I want to be free.
Nigel, I sometimes wonder, obviously you know what's happening there a lot better than I do, but that maybe Boris Johnson is forcing Europe's hand here. You say you won't renegotiate the deal. The clock is ticking. You better, or we're out one way or the other.
Well, of course. I mean, look, a lot of this is negotiation, but I do think Boris Johnson talking tough on no deal is because he actually wants the European Union to make adjustments to the deal that Mrs May put in place. And my argument is this: the deal May put in place, even with amendments, is still a terrible deal. It's still the worst deal in history. And I'm going to go on campaigning for a clean break Brexit. And when we're clean, we could, by Christmas, have sectoral trade agreements with the USA. How bad is that?
Nigel, I wonder, too, whether the Europeans are more worried about this than they let on. After all, it's a club that you don't want to be a part of. And you mentioned, what's happening with some members like Greece and Italy and Portugal and Spain that, are struggling as members of that, European community. And maybe the Europeans fear, Belgium fears more to the point, that all bets are off.
I think that's right. And I think, us breaking free, us 2 years down the road being seen to do well, will be the end of the European Union. And, of course, the European Union is at the heart of the globalist project. And Brexit, Trump winning, these are all big blows back, big fight backs against globalism. Globalism is about losing your national democracy, losing your independence, losing control of your borders. So I think right at the moment, Neil, we are, with this Brexit battle, we are on the front lines of something that doesn't just affect us, it affects America, it affects the whole of the Western world. And it's all propelled and pumped up by money from half a dozen giant multinational banks and businesses. It does not suit men and women who want to set up their own enterprises. It does not suit democracy that our forefathers, made so much sacrifice to defend. I know in my heart that Brexit is the right thing. I know we're getting closer to it. I just want Boris Johnson to do it the right way.